Many people choose not to be a star performer because their job is not their center. And maybe they made that choice consciously because that's not what they want out of life. Maybe it was unconsciously because there's different things in life that are pulling them away from their ability to focus on work, right? It could be a health issue, it could be a family obligation. But sometimes people make active, conscious decisions that, hey, I need to be a worker bee at this point.
Welcome to Leadership and Motivation Unleashed, practical leadership for modern workplaces. A podcast where we explore actionable strategies to help you lead with confidence, build cohesive teams, and create thriving workplace cultures.
We're here for the career-focused professionals climbing the corporate ladder, the managers navigating team dynamics, and the leaders shaping the future of work. In each episode, we'll break down challenges, share practical advice, and leave you with insights you can apply today.
I'm Patrick Law, your co-host, a Gulf War veteran with over 26 years of corporate leadership experience in banking and payments, blending precision and innovation with a tad of passion to solve big challenges.
And I'm Rachel Book, a C-suite trusted advisor and an HR leader with 2 decades of experience at Fortune 50 companies, specializing in building people-first strategies and driving impactful talent solutions.
Together, Rachel and I, we combine operational expertise and transformational leadership to bring you real-world advice on leadership, workplace culture, team dynamics, career growth, and anything else that we may want to delve into.
So, if you're ready to take your career and leadership skills to the next level, you're in the right place. Let's get started.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Leadership Podcast. I am here with Rachel today, and we are going to talk about favorite employees, star performing employees, maybe your average Joe employees, and there is such a thing. Remember, I'm on the phone with an HR lord here, so she probably doesn't like hearing that, but there are an army of the 80%, the people in the middle, maybe the people that just come for a paycheck, and then you have the hard chargers and so on. And there is a way to lead them all, because it takes every type of person to make a team or a company or a group or your squad or your department successful. So, Rachel, I'm going to kick it to you. Why don't you kick us off and I'll throw in some color, but this should be a good topic. I've had several employees, leaders that over the years were accused of playing favorites. And, so-and-so leader only spends time with so-and-so. Like, well, the rest of us don't get her attention or her or his attention. And I would say things like, well, are you doing things to get their attention? Like professional good things? Or do you think everything's just like throwing candy in a parade to everybody and everybody gets the same candy? Like, there is a hierarchy of execution that people do naturally drift to people who like to climb and win. And you do spend more time with the good versus the great versus the. So I have some hot sports opinions on that, but why don't you go?
Oh, this is such a good topic, and I have so much to say. The first thing I'll say is that no company would even survive if they had only top performers or A players. You don't need, right? You never want a team of only A players because you always need a mix of everything, right? So that's the first reality. I will never forget this. In my first job, when I was just dipping my toes into HR and recruiting, and I was young, I was 19, 20, and I was in way over my head doing things I had never done before. And I was interviewed. So I actually had hired my boss. So Sue Berman, if you're listening, shout out. And she actually taught me real HR for the first time. And we were interviewing someone together. I remember this so clearly. And I decided probably 3 or 4 minutes into the interview, if it was even that long, that this person was not great, not smart, not awesome. And let's just say I didn't hide it very well. I probably wasn't making eye contact. I was probably looking disinterested. Maybe I wasn't asking the right questions.
How long ago was this?
This was a long time ago. This was 1999.
So before you became aware.
Yes.
Because you don't do any of that now. Like, you're a great poker player now.
Oh, well, thank you. No,
this was the other version of you that didn't have a poker face yet.
I am not perfect by any stretch, but I've learned a lot since then. So I just, at that point, I considered myself a top performer. I was smart. I was accomplishing a ton way beyond my years. And why shouldn't everyone else do that too? And I'll never forget, Sue said to me at the end of the meeting, she's like, Rachel, not everyone is going to be a superstar performer, right? It could be that for this job, this person will be the perfect fit. This is what she wants to do. This is the job that is great for her. This is what the company needs at that time. And I'll never forget that because, again, some of us keep expecting everyone to approach their work like we might approach our work. But that's not necessarily even a good thing because then there wouldn't be anyone to do some of the busy and boring work, right? And that was back in the day before there were robots and before there was AI. So that's the first thing that I'll say, that not every job needs a star player. And for sure, not every team needs a cast of all star performers, A players, whatever you want to call to characterize them. The next thing that I'll say is that it doesn't affect the value of the person, right? Many people choose not to be a star performer because their job is not their center. And maybe they made that choice consciously because that's not what they want out of life. Maybe it was unconsciously because there's different things in life that are pulling them away from their ability to focus on work, right? It could be a health issue, it could be a family obligation. But sometimes people make active, conscious decisions that, hey, I need to be a worker bee at this point. I mean, I remember when my kids were really, really small and I was feeling stressed out, juggling everything. And I remember saying to a friend, I wish I can get a job as a checkout clerk at a supermarket. Like, that's what I want. I just need to go in, do my thing, leave, not think about it. I know exactly what's expected of me. You put the stuff in the bag, you say thank you, and you move on. I didn't. But yeah, but I get it, right? Like different people, and it doesn't mean that someone is less valuable because they are not a star player. And then another thing that I'll say is that when you think about your team of star performers versus worker bees, when you're a manager and you're analyzing your team and you're saying, who are the top performers? Who are the critical employees that I might need to retain? Which are the ones that are more replaceable than others? It doesn't necessarily reflect on a person's value, their self-worth, their personalities, their capabilities. Sometimes it could be the nature of their role or their experiences. It might mean that somebody has very unique legacy knowledge, or they know how to do something that nobody else knows how to do. And that is why they're valuable to a team at a given moment. And sometimes it's because their job is a specialist job versus a generalist job. Right? If you have 6 people and they all do the same thing, you might attribute less inherent value in those roles as compared to one person or 2 people that are the only ones in the company that know how to do a particular task. And so very often when we think of employees and their roles, it doesn't necessarily have to do with who they are, whether we like them, whether they're doing great work. Sometimes it's the job that they fill or the function that they can accomplish. And with all that said, I would say that how do we treat these employees? Do we treat them differently? Do we allow star performers a little bit more latitude than maybe the ones who aren't accomplishing as much or aren't achieving as much success? And so my answer here would be, it depends. The first thing is if it's misbehavior, if your star performers are mistreating people, if they are assholes, if they're acting unethically, if they are being rude to customers, I would say absolutely not. Maintain your standards of culture, of behavior, of expectations, of your values. Don't allow that because star performers will sometimes know the leverage they have and they are going to do whatever they do until you stop them, right? And so I would say if you are a company, if you are a leader and you're experiencing that, nip that in the bud. Create a plan. Your star performer, no matter what, is not indispensable. Right? You can always find somebody else to do that work. You might have some hiccups. It might take a little bit longer to get them trained in. Maybe they won't do it as well at first, but allowing misbehavior, tolerating misbehavior from star performers sends a really bad message to the team. Same thing when you let your kid misbehave, right? If you have a few kids and one of them keeps pushing the envelope and keeps trying to do things and you let that go, your other kids are going to say, ooh, let me see if I can get away with that too. And so when it comes to values, I would say that is a time to stand firm as much as possible. It's hard, it's difficult, and you might be worried, oh my gosh, what if, right? What if we fire that person for doing that? What will happen? And what I'll tell you is nothing will happen. It might be a little bit more difficult, but you will move on, right? Mm-hmm. The repercussions of leaving someone in place with bad behavior can sometimes be worse.
Oh, so bad.
Right? However, what I would say is if you have a star performer, the only time I would say when it's okay to treat your employees differently based on their star status or their performer status would also be attributable to why they are a star performer. So for example, let's say you've got a team of 5 people and 3 of them are just awesome. They're on top of everything. They don't need any reminders. They're meeting their deadlines. They're getting stuff done. And then you've got the other 2 people who are kind of procrastinating. They're lagging. They're sometimes pushing off the things that are hard for them. So you might hold those procrastinators to different standards than the star performers. Now, they might say, why are you treating them differently? Why do I need to do a report and they don't have to do a report? Or why do they get these assignments and I don't get these assignments? And if you can tie it to their performance and you can explain, hey, these are the gaps. This is why you are not at star performer status yet. This is how you can get there if you want to, then that makes it completely different. That's not being unfair. That's not playing favorites. That's tying your treatment to them based on the cues that you're getting and the success that you're having. So somebody who keeps forgetting stuff will need more reminders than somebody who doesn't, right? Somebody who is constantly and consistently achieving their results may be given first dibs at a special project because they've proven those results. And so I would say everyone should know where they stand, right? And so if there's one takeaway that I would ask you to bring along with you from this is if your employees are star performers or some of them are not, make sure they know and make sure they know what it takes to switch their status if they so choose. And if they're like, hey, you know what? I really want to be a steady Eddie. Like, this is what I can give to my job now. I'm probably not going to be exceeding or pushing or trying to get a promotion. Have that conversation so everyone knows where they stand, right? And then you can assign that work accordingly. You won't stress them out by having ideas on their behalf that they may not have on their own. Like, have you ever met, Patrick, a leader who believes that someone on their team has so much potential and keeps trying to push them to take on additional work, to take stretch assignments, to apply for promotions? And the person keeps saying, no thanks. I don't really want this. Actually not. And then you have the leader just keep at it like, no, you should. And it would be so great for you. And sometimes I feel like leaders need to know when to let go. And maybe it's just a moment in time. Maybe they're going through something, but maybe sometimes we have ideas for people that they don't share for themselves. Those are my hot takes on this topic. We pick our topics based on what we imagine is on the minds of many, but we are not mind readers. So please use our form, which we'll link for you in the show notes, to suggest additional topics we should consider, request to be a guest on our show, or give us constructive criticism, which will make our podcast more valuable for many. Thank you so much. We appreciate you.
I've been the leader that has pushed people to do something. And because they didn't want to let me down or look off in my eyes, they took on something they shouldn't have. And I'm going to be as melodramatic as saying I've ruined careers, but I've ruined relationships. Because there was a time in my career that I thought anyone could do anything. Versus, did they want to do anything?
Yes.
Like, I came at it from a perspective of, set your mind to it. Anything's possible. It doesn't make a lot of sense, but I do that with pain too. Out of sight, out of mind. You can do it. And, you can make up in your head where that comes from with me, but that isn't true. To your point, it's okay for people to say, no, I want to be a block builder. I don't want to be the owner of the building. Or I want to be a brick mason. I'm making up the things here, but the world revolves around all types of personalities and skill sets and current needs. Like you mentioned when you were a young mom and you had a lot of things going on, like you were brave enough or courageous enough, well-rounded enough, self-aware enough to know that. You didn't get sucked into a vortex that hurt your children, hurt your marriage, hurt you, or hurt the company. You said, no, this is what I want to do right now. And I wish I was wiser. For the listeners, you guys have heard me say my first 10 years was rough. And I made a lot of mistakes by thinking everyone was the same. Not everyone wants to do the 500 jumping jacks every day. They have other things going on in their life. And I was so blinded, call it by my own ambition or desire to keep climbing the next hill, that I thought everyone wanted to climb the hill. What do you mean? Like, the hill's fun to climb. Not for everybody. I did a lot of people a disservice by thinking that way, leading that way. I still have to remind myself of that. Like I have to remind myself of that. Not everybody's built for the client.
Yeah. But
Some
I want to
people want
challenge you.
Go ahead.
I want to challenge you on this one because probably, of course, that happened in some cases, but also in other cases, maybe somebody saw potential that they didn't see in themselves and they were able to scale way higher heights than they imagined because you saw that in them. And so
there's always two sides to a coin.
No, of course. But what we see a lot, and I want to make sure I call this out because so often you see this, especially with women and people from historically marginalized communities where, a manager will say, well, I posted the senior supervisor role and, nobody else applied. So I guess they're not interested. And there is a situation, and there are plenty of times where somebody might need a little bit of extra encouragement. They might need a tap on the shoulder, right? But again, it's where do you stop? When they say, no, I do not want this, right? When do you know when to let go?
Let me jump back in and say, that's the part I wasn't doing. I didn't know when to stop. Everything for me was like 102 miles an hour. There was no third gear, just fifth. And that put people in a bad spot because the people who loved fifth gear, I thought everyone was like them. And then the others who wanted to be in third gear, and I'm pushing them into fifth because of, call it peer pressure or whatever you want to call it, office culture, they kept trying to keep up and it wasn't healthy for them. And I was blind to it. That's what I was talking about. But yes, there are many people in my past who have told me, which I really appreciate the brave souls that say these things to me, that call and say, Patrick, man, if you didn't push me for this, or if you didn't say that, or you didn't expect that, or that hard conversation we had, or I didn't think I could do that job, but you kept telling me I could, and I did. Now I love it, and I've done these other 14 things. There's a balance, Rachel.
Yes,
like I got both sides of it. I was painting the picture of my first 10 years where I only saw one side of the coin. And I just pushed everybody to fifth gear, even if they couldn't do it or didn't have the courage to tell me, no, Patrick, I can't do fifth gear. I want to do third gear. And to be smart enough in my last 15 years to know, I need a bunch of third gear types. Because like you said, if everyone was fifth gear, the company would come apart or your team would come apart. You can't have that many alphas like running up the hill together. You got to have balance. And that is leadership, is putting teams of people together that balance each other out. No matter what the noise is from the outside. Well, this person isn't this, or this person isn't that. I'm like, you actually don't know what you're talking about. This person adds value here, 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 and here. This person adds value over here, 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 and here. And together they're well-rounded. Like there's a nuance to leadership of that is required. Now, too much praise is a good thing and a bad thing. Let's veer into that for a minute. So like, have you heard the phrase, don't feed the bears?
Yes.
Okay. And what does that mean? What happens when you feed the bears?
They want more all the time.
Hunting. They stop hunting. It's not good for the ecosystem because they'll just show up at the picnic table and sit and wait to be served. Like that's not what they're for. They're alphas. Get out there and hunt. Right? So if you overpraise, right, some part of the world may say, why does that person get all that attention? And then the person getting all the praise was like, well, wait, where's my attention? I came to work today. Like there's an interesting balance of leadership acumen as it relates to feeding the narrative of, oh, Johnny, you're so good. Like if you overdo it or underdo it, like there's a skill set to that. We ran a program at one of the places that I worked that we called Move the Middle. And HR didn't like it. You're probably not going to like this very much, but it's like the bell curve, right? Like 10% of your organization should just be fired. Right? They just shouldn't even be there. 20% of your organization does a majority of the work. Like if you look around, whether it's police officers or military units or corporate America, there's like 20% of the organization that is so hard charging. They're getting the work done of like 50% of the organization. And then you got the middle. And, I was in my heyday of education and I was at banking school at University of Washington. And one of the leadership courses got into that very discussion. Like if you got 2% more work out of the middle of your organization, how much more effective is the organization overall? And do you take a little steam off your top 20%, right? That is just killing themselves every day. And you give them a break. Maybe now it's 18%, not 20. I'm making up numbers for everybody. So we came up with a program of incentives to get the middle to do more work. And when you say more work, it's easy to do like in companies or teams that have like really stringent KPIs, key performance indicators. Like I did this many widgets today.
Mm-hmm.
I did this many tickets today. I answered this many calls today, yada, 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 yada. So we picked a team that had a lot of widgets and we said, okay, the average person does 80 widgets a day. The top 20% is doing 140 widgets a day. The bottom 10% does 40.
Mm-hmm.
Now, maybe they're lazy. Maybe they don't get it. Maybe we did a crappy job training them. Anyway, we called it Move the Middle, and it worked. And we got 15% more work out of the overall team. And 15% on a team that did millions of things a month is a lot.
What were the
It's a lot.
interventions?
Leave work early.
Mm.
If you accomplish this 5 days in a row, your kid has a soccer game at 5, the office is across town, you want to leave at 2, take it. There's where HR didn't like me because some of these folks were hourly.
Yeah.
Maybe even talking about this like on a podcast, people are like, how do you get away with that?
I know, right?
HR liked me. I always make friends with HR, but it worked. And even though they left work early, like once a month, 3 hours, give me a break. We got 15% out of the overall team up. And what else happened was the bottom 10% turned into the bottom 5%. Because 5% of the 10% saw what was happening. It was like, I want a piece of that. Now, the sad part is you got to move that needle or you got to move the target because people get used to it. What did I just say about don't feed the bear? Where's my t-shirt? Where's my early day off to go to my kid's soccer game? Where's my breakfast with my kid? Wait, why do I have to come in at 8? I did more than I've ever done. Okay. Leaders have to have the time and the headspace and the maturity to keep changing the targets so people don't rest on their laurels and you don't feed the bears. So it's a version of talking about favorites or superstars or whatever, but the real dialogue I wanted to talk about on this version of the podcast is how do you get the people in the middle to do a little bit more? And it's not always more money. Like money doesn't motivate everybody. And
Right. It's
funny
the intrinsic motivation, right?
It's the people who are actually motivated by money that are blind to this. They think everyone's motivated by money and they don't understand why their teams don't respond to it. Well, just give them another $500. They don't want the extra $500. They don't care about the cash bonus. They want breakfast with their kid once a week. That's worth more than a bar of gold. I keep picking on kids and parents, but there's a million versions of that. Maybe sick parents. The stress that an employee feels is that because they have to leave early to take their mom to a doctor's appointment. What if you just gave them some free space on that? And that they earn those credits of time and it relieves their pressure. I'm running out of vacation days or whatever. It's all right. You built up enough performance credits. Go ahead.
Yeah.
And then the people that are like, why did he get to leave early? Well, because he did 148 items every day for a month and you did 12. I'm making up the numbers, everybody. And they're like, oh, see, that takes a little bit of the favoritism out too. It's performance-based execution and it's performance-based nice to haves. Or, hey, I want to wear a t-shirt to work today. Because if I'm going back in time, wearing a t-shirt to work was like a sin at a bank. So you just didn't do it. But I was breaking all kinds of rules with that. Like, you want to wear jeans on a Tuesday? Go ahead. Because we had casual Fridays. Remember casual Fridays? Now it's like casual every day. Yeah. But back in the day, I was like, oh my God, I get to wear jeans on a Friday? Oh. Okay, well now where'd you wear jeans on Tuesday? You got to be creative. And it takes headspace to come up with this stuff. And you better have the courage to work with the organization that you're a part of. You're not the king of it. You better get somebody on your side to understand what you're doing here.
No,
but the performance-based things, there's where favoritism should come from. Everyone should want to perform a little more. And I would tell people all the time, and I actually have a chart that shows it, like your best doesn't look the same every day. Like some days you're in the dumps, some days you're high, some days you're in the dumps, some days you're high. But the average, if you keep it above standard, you're doing a good job. Don't hold yourself to a standard that you have to be perfect every day or the teacher's pet every day or any. We're human beings. We have things going on in our lives, but just work every day to execute. And I was talking about this. I just came back from Puerto Rico, everybody. If you heard the last podcast, Rachel welcomed me home. I was visiting customers down there and I was talking to a senior banker at a customer in San Juan. And we were talking over lunch as a couple of older executives do. And I said to him, I think work is a privilege. It's a privilege to have a job. It's not a right. And it's a gift if you have the capabilities to hold a job and to clothe yourself and feed yourself. And I'm not going to turn into old man, get off my lawn guy here, but somewhere along the way, work has become a little dulled to people. Work. Okay. But you know what? God gave you the skill set or the brain or the energy or whatever to find a way to earn a check. And not everyone has that. And it is a gift. It's a gift. It's not a right. It's a privilege to hold a job. So you shouldn't go to your job and be half-ass. Go hard at it. The fact that people get the opportunity to do some of these things, whether it's law enforcement or the ability to get in the military, which isn't easy, working for the government, working for a church, if that's your thing, or whatever the thing is that God gifted you the abilities to do, you should treat them with respect. And that respect should also translate into the best performance you can give in that given day. So I didn't want to get on a soapbox there at the end, but favoritism's a lot broader than just, I like Johnny more than Sally. Yeah. Like, it's performance-based, it's capabilities, it's what's happening in your life. So anyway, if you're listening to this, don't be beholden to the people that gave you the job, but treat the job like the gift it is. Somebody saw something in you and said, Rachel can do this. Patrick can do this. Now show them why they chose you. Because one day you'll be choosing people. Yeah. And you're going to want them to treat the job like the gift that it is. It's a really unique thing, work. It's fun.
Oh, yeah. And in return, you could expect not special treatment, but maybe additional rewards, right? Mm-hmm. Or being recognized for going above and beyond if it's part of your job, right? So what we're saying, and just as a quick takeaway, it's not always, life is not always fair, right? I grew up in a family where, if any of our siblings said, it's not fair, she got this, I didn't get that, life is not fair. Life is in obviously equity and equitable treatment in many ways. You should be paying people the same, right? For the same work. But if somebody is going above and beyond because they want to, and the job has room for that, then they could and should be treated differently. They could be receiving a different latitude, different projects, additional rewards. Yeah. But where special treatment does not or should not apply is when people are misbehaving. So people can be treated differently because of their great performance, but they shouldn't be allowed to get away with things that are not okay because of that. And that takes strength from the employer's perspective to say, nobody's indispensable. Even if you're a star performer, even if you're great at your job, even if customers love you, even if you're closing deals that are worth bajillions of dollars, if they violate the cultural norms and the values of the company, then unless you stop doing X, we will find someone else to do this job. And you can.
Absolutely.
And you can, no matter what anyone tells you, right? Nobody is completely indispensable.
Everyone's replaceable. Everyone.
Yeah, one day. So until then, let's keep doing the best work that we can. Let's look out for those star performers among our teams. Let's encourage them. Let's raise them as examples so that others who want to do that kind of work understand what it takes to get there.
Bye, everybody.
Thanks for tuning in to Leadership and Motivation Unleashed. If you enjoyed today's episode, please leave us a rating and review. It only takes 1 minute and it helps the show grow and reach more leaders like you in search of advice and motivation.
And don't forget to subscribe so you never miss an episode. Please remember to share with your friends and family and coworkers, mentors, trusted advisors. This show is for everybody. See you next time.